Is spending 30% of your income on housing actually realistic in today's market? I'm about to break down why this rule exists, why it might be failing you, and what you should actually consider when buying your first home. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most controversial rules in personal finance, the 30% housing rule. I recently came across a story that I think many of you will relate to. A first-time home buyer making decent money, but struggling to make the math work in today's housing market. Let me paint you a picture. Meet Sarah. She's 25, makes between $91,000 to $117,000 per year in Ontario, Canada. She's debt-free, paid off her car, and has been living at home saving money. Sounds like she's in a great position to buy a house, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting. The cheapest homes she'd consider buying are around $300,000 to $350,000. Anything cheaper is either in a high crime area or needs major renovations. She got pre-approved for $450,000, but that feels like way too much. When she applies the 30% rule to her take-home pay, which is around $2,300 to $2,800 bi-weekly, she can only afford about $1,500 per month for housing. And guess what? You can't find a decent place for $1,500 in her area. So where does this 30% rule even come from? It's not some magical number that appeared out of thin air. The rule actually originated from government housing policies in the 1960s and 70s, when housing costs were, dramatically different. Back then, it was designed to make sure people had enough money left over for other essentials like food, transportation, healthcare, and savings. Here's the key point everyone misses. The rule is based on gross income, not take-home pay. Why? Well, because taxes vary wildly depending on where you live, your filing status, and deductions. Using gross income just creates a more universal standard. But here's what the rule is really trying to prevent: becoming house poor. This is when your housing costs are so high that you can't afford anything else. No emergency fund, no money for maintenance, no ability to save for retirement. Now let's talk about why this rule feels impossible for so many people today. First, housing costs have skyrocketed faster than incomes. In many markets, following the 30% rule would mean you literally cannot afford to live there, period. Second, the rule was created when single-income households were more common. Today's housing prices often require dual incomes to make the math work. Third, the rule doesn't account for regional differences. $1,500 might get you a mansion in rural Kansas, but it won't even get you a studio apartment in Toronto or San Francisco. So what should you actually do? Let me share what financial experts are saying. Option 1. Create a detailed budget. Instead of relying on a percentage, create a comprehensive budget. List all your expenses: food, transportation, insurance, savings goals, entertainment. Whatever's left over is what you can afford for housing. Option 2. Use the rule as a starting point, not a hard limit. The 30% rule can be a helpful baseline, but you might need to go to 35% or even 40% in expensive markets. Just know the risks you're taking. Okay, so option 3 is to consider the total cost of ownership. Don't just focus on the mortgage payment alone. Make sure you factor in things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, and HOA fees. These extra costs can easily add anywhere from 30 to 50% to your monthly housing expenses. Now, option 4 is to plan for income growth. If you're early in your career and you've got strong earning potential, you might actually be able to stretch a bit more than someone whose income growth is more stable but, limited. Here are some warning signs that, honestly, you're stretching your budget too far. You can't save at least 10% of your income, you don't have an emergency fund, You're using credit cards just for basic expenses. You feel stressed about money every single month and, well, one unexpected expense would put you in real financial trouble. So, if you're in Sarah's situation, here's what I'd recommend. First, run the numbers both ways. Calculate 30% of both your gross and net income to see your range. Make sure you factor in all costs, like your mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and utilities. You might want to consider renting first, since that gives you independence while you keep saving. Also, have a look at smaller homes or maybe even different areas. Sometimes, the perfect home comes later. And hey, consider house hacking, maybe buying a duplex or getting roommates to help offset the costs. Here's the bottom line. The 30% rule isn't broken. The housing market is. The rule is still a valuable guideline to help prevent you from becoming house poor, but honestly, it might not be all that realistic in today's market. Your goal shouldn't be to follow rules blindly, but rather to make sure you can actually afford your housing costs while still living a full life. That means, having enough money for food, transportation, savings, and even some fun. Just remember, there's absolutely no shame in renting longer, buying a smaller place, or moving to a more affordable area. The most important thing is making a decision you can sustain, both financially and emotionally. So, what's your experience with the 30% rule? Are you finding it realistic in your market, or do you have to stretch beyond it? Let me know in the comments below. If this video helped you think a bit differently about housing affordability, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more practical financial advice. And remember, personal finance is personal. What works for someone else might not work for you, and that's totally okay. I'll see you in the next video.